it's another Saturday. So like last year I started doing these Saturday rants because I think a lot, right? And I'm in this world where social interaction is kind of small and superficial, like hi, hello, how are you, the sky is blue, or it's raining today. It's like there's not much substance to some of these conversations, right? So on Saturdays I just come up here, and at first it was like 2-3 people following or maybe checking in to see if I'm talking shit about them. And that's pretty funny because I mean, although I've said some shit here and there about a few people, I usually end up regretting for having stooped down that low in the first place, and I try to change up my strategy, or I just pick and choose, right? What kind of a piece of shit I can be, especially on air. So hopefully I'm not. Hopefully I'm kind of constructive and productive, right? I mean, we watch content anyways, and I actually consume a lot of content. It's a form of input visually, through the ears, auditory, and even kinesthetic, right? When we like something, or when we go in and read the posts, and we go in and research the artist or the cause, like we become interactive with the content technically. And that's a cool thing. So we learn a lot through the little device that is in your hand right now, actually. I chose, I don't know, maybe 2020, 22, 23. I was trying to have a little shop, doing my own business, my own car garage type of thing, right? Do some customs, do some restorations. And granted, I didn't know shit, especially about business or how to fix stuff. So most of my energy was spent learning how to fix so that I can carry out the services that I was selling. I wasn't really focusing on the numbers too much. Excuse me. And multiple of my business attempts have definitely failed because I'm learning skills. Usually, like, what we need to survive is technically could be bare minimum, right? We don't need a fancy house. We don't need 2 cars. We don't need to be able to go to a restaurant 6 times a week and on a vacation. We just don't need all of that, right? Those things are nice. They're called luxuries. They're this and that. The fact that we have running toilets as a standard, my goodness, I look old. When you get older, it just looks like your stuff just always sags. Like I go to the gym and I try to run. I granted I'm like 148 pounds right now, but it just still looks like it all sags. I'm sorry for my titties. Yeah, I think I'm slightly autistic, and I will never admit that on air or to anybody else, that I have any form of weakness or mental illness. But I probably have at least 10 diseases and 15 addictions and all the flaws that a car guy should have, right? I just simply, I think, right? And who has been paying attention to some of my videos from last year, 2 years ago? My reels were literally just me walking around the car and putting a sound to it. Nobody watched that shit. My camera was greasy. It was all shaky and stuff because I'm caffeinated and I haven't eaten for a day because I was trying to make some money, you know. I was behind deadlines, never charged full prices for anything. So it was an interesting adventure of a life. Yeah, so this whole time I was building little businesses and causes and stuff. I don't know, I feel like a few people, especially in my inner circle, were deconstructing me. And I mean, I felt betrayed for a second, and then I was like, you know what? Technically, if like all great leaders have to, I'm not saying I'm a great leader, but I wanted to be a leader of sorts. And leaders get stabbed in the back a few times, right? And nobody really wants to hang out with their manager, because the manager has the ability to call them out on their bullshit, and people have to be on their best behavior. So at some point I concluded that when I hang out with groups of people, like, I get separated like a little manager, like I'm some snitch, you know, and they're like, oh, okay, he's different, we're not gonna have as much fun with Alex because we have to not be as drunk because he'll call us out for being too messy, or our skirt can't go up too high because, you know, like, he'll point out my butt or some shit. So yeah, I'm slightly retarded, but I'm also a guy. And guys, my goodness, you don't even know what a man is. Like, we as citizens of the United States, for example, we recognize the authority of the government over us, like the laws, the mandatory respect that we have to give to our neighbors, and I guess the rules and boundaries that are set in place, right? However, a man outside of that is so free to roam the world, the possibilities of life, the many partners, the any way of life he chooses, right? As long as it's within social norms that we've constructed. But a man is such a free spirit, such a man is a god of sorts, right? He can, with his hands, he can go and make things happen. He can predict stuff, he can calculate things, he can apply logic to things, he can observe patterns and predict future events. He can sharpen his brain, he can sharpen his body, he can build skyscrapers, do all these magical things, right? Well, cool things, but in the great scheme of things, because animals definitely can't build a warehouse, they can't think of a drawbridge system. So a man is an impressive creature. Anyways, so who the fuck is gonna tell you what to do, right? If you got any self-respect about you, like, yeah, okay, we got a couple rules, but technically some of us have to acknowledge that when push comes to shove, we will break a few rules to get some things done. And we have been our whole lives, right? Which, as a Christian, I also have concluded that outside of society rules, I have some Christian rules that apply to me, which means I can't be evil, I can't be disrespectful with women, even though I see a couple honest truths, right? I can't be too greedy at the expense of other people, especially people who are kind of suffering and poor and who can't really think for themselves. I should close this window. Anyways, this video is up. I'm really at work, but it's a Saturday, and I just wanted to include a little airtime, because whoever's watching me, like, I'm glad you're watching me. Like, how in the hell are you still watching me? So if I were to give you a little piece of 2 cents, because you're still hanging out with me here, for example, my motorcycle parts, I might just, you know, put that in primer, make it look kind of good. I need a motorcycle engine, and then I also need to build a couple, at least one mini bike that's 49 cc's, so that I can go on the sidewalks and cruise through that. Obviously, everything I build is for sale, so my last e-bike, I sold that off, and now I need another Scootabout device or a car to build. The thing is, like, after I composed a couple books and completed a few thoughts, I'm like, okay, I don't really have time to build cars, but it makes me feel kind of fulfilled, you know? It makes me feel productive. It gives structure and purpose to my day. Whereas if I were to sit around and think and write and be creative and smoke lots of weed, like, I don't know, I can definitely lose 2-3 days just being a bum, stuck in thought, you know? But this way I can be working and still stuck in thought. That's why I like work. Any kind of purpose, activity, and low key. Although my respiratory system is at risk, right, from breathing all the dust from my job, and smoking and vaping and paint fumes and gas fumes and this and that. I chose to work with my body instead of just my mind sitting at a computer. Back when I was like 18, 19, 20, I saw all the computer geeks and the accountants and how sloppy it kind of looks when you sit for a living, or like truck drivers, for example, right? If we're not active and we're just sitting, our body changes form for sure. But it gives me back pains even from early age. So I was like, you know what? Let me just be out and about. Because of my, I guess, hip problem, the doctors told me I could be in a wheelchair by the age of 35. And so once I heard that at like 17, 18, 19, I was like, you know what, let me just be active with my life so that I can reduce the risk of becoming a guy that's in a wheelchair because of hip problems. So I just been going ham, living life, lifting stuff, running around. And although I am in pain sometimes here and there, especially for doing long distance stuff or long days, it's kind of worth it, you know. Like, I like the fact that I'm struggling with a little bit of a donut, a spare tire, I guess, and I'm gaining a little bit of muscle tone. Instead of trying to regain my posture and work through back problems and just kind of be upset at life a little bit because I chose to sit at a computer all day, instead of, you know. And I'm not saying that, but it's choices, right? So I know you white collar people, we're so like blue collar people work for us because we do the brain work. Well, you know, some of us are kind of smart. We build stuff. We build skyscrapers, we build bridges. We're in charge of all the electrical, all the plumbing that functions through everything that you're managing. So, you know, I do believe that women, for the most part, play supportive roles in all positions because it's their strength. So I know you guys think that you're the face of the company, but as a receptionist, you know, like, you represent the company. And if you're cutting paychecks, like, you're still an employee that's just in charge of a task. And had a man been more useless in the field, he'd probably be in the office doing customer service stuff. Or had the woman been stronger, she would be out in the field putting in the work, right? So 13 minutes, look at what I can do in 13 minutes. Talk massive shit. Who's upset? Happy Saturday. Monday's around the corner. Oh man, that's about to suck, huh? I'm kidding. I know some of you are mad, some of you really genuinely don't like me, and some of you just don't give a fuck who I am. And that's okay. If you stick around for this long, like, my goodness, get a life.